Position on globalization. Even here the left has an ambiguous position on globalization, Europe, advanced countries and so on. Why does it have an ambiguous position on globalization? You see, the left view has always been that internationalism is a good thing. Okay? Europe had 2 world wars in which they killed one another. So when you have a European Union with free mobility of people across countries, the left tends to support that. In other words, many, the biggest supporters of EU are actually left thinkers in Europe. They all say that yes, what is bad about EU is that it is dominated by finance. But what we need is an EU which is not dominated by finance. They would be opposed to the idea of breaking up the EU, though they would be in favor of all moves to actually get rid of the hegemony of finance. But the fact that if you cannot get rid of the hegemony of finance, then it may be important for you even to get out of EU in order to have a pro-people's agenda is something on which the left in large parts of Europe and elsewhere in the world has a very ambiguous position. That's true everywhere. Why? Because being internationalists, they see something good about globalization. But on the other hand, the fact that this globalization also is occurring under capitalist conditions, under the hegemony of finance, and therefore bringing about hardships to the working people, they think can be got rid of or should be got rid of without getting rid or without delinking from globalization. That, I believe, is the left thinking in large parts of the country, and I believe that is erroneous thinking. I was really arguing against that. And I think that the left has, in many places, not made advances because of the fact that it has been trapped in this thinking. Okay? So its failure is not because of not taking into account identity. Identity politics is what neoliberalism promotes. Why? Because neoliberalism wants to destroy class politics. It wants to promote identity politics. It wants to divide the people. So if it wants to divide the people so that there is no concerted opposition to the hegemony of finance, in that case, identity politics is the politics that neoliberalism would like. Now, if the left pursued identity politics, the left can support and must support the identity politics of the oppressed. I'm not at all denying that. But if the left simply becomes trapped in identity politics, then the left becomes trapped in neoliberalism. Okay? What the left has to do, even while, for instance, let me give you an example. I just said that everybody should have universal economic rights. That does not preclude reservations for Dalits in jobs. Okay? In other words, one can support the identity politics of the oppressed, but at the same time make an effort to transcend that identity. If we, in fact, this is something which Ambedkar had expressed. He wanted annihilation of caste. In other words, the whole idea is to go beyond identities. So the left must always strive for transcending identity politics. One way of transcending identity politics is actually to build up a notion of citizenship where everybody, whether you're a Dalit or a Brahmin or whatever you are, you have the same kinds of rights. Okay? We have the same political rights, we should also have the same kinds of economic rights. Those are ways of transcending identity politics. So I would say that the reason for the left failure does not lie in the fact that it has not taken identity politics into account and only insisted on class politics. The reasons lie in an ambiguity on the question of globalization, and of course the left, even while supporting the identity politics-based demands of the oppressed, must at the same time try and transcend it. It must not get trapped into identity politics. Okay. Now, there's no silver lining. Don't ask me to kind of find a silver lining in capitalism, because I can't find one. So the point is that I'm simply, I have no professional interest in abusing capitalism. I mean, I don't. This is the way, as a social scientist, I see things. And this is what I'm trying to tell you. Now, there is no reason why I should find a silver lining in capitalism, and I don't see any silver lining in capitalism. But on the other hand, I do see, therefore, that the time has come for all of us to think seriously of how we go beyond this. Now, in this, I'm a socialist, you may not agree with me, but that's why I wanted to have a common ground by saying, okay, let us at least see if we can go beyond this by talking in terms of welfare expenditures. I know that capitalism is not to allow these welfare expenditures. You may think it may. Fine. So let us agree on this and let's demand it together. If it is the case that capitalism does allow this in welfare expenditure, I would say very good. On the other hand, if it is the case capitalism does not allow, then you have to come over to my view. All right. Then there was the question about yes, public sector and so on, quality of manpower. You know the idea. Okay, the idea of this raises a number of questions. The first thing I'd like to say, okay, let's just build up. I think to say that neoliberalism has brought us higher growth rate, earlier were Hindu growth rate and so on, or what is generally referred to jokingly as the Hindu rate of growth. Now we have double, triple and so on growth rate, is irrelevant, is beside the point. I'd just like to give you one statistic. In 1900, around 1900, if you look at what was then called British India, the per capita food grain availability in British India was about 200 kilograms per year. Okay. By the time of independence, it had fallen drastically. It had fallen to about actually in 1937 it was 135 or 37 kilograms per year, but even if you take averages and so on, it would be about 140, 145, let's say 150 kilograms per year. It had fallen from 200, drastic fall. After independence, with enormous efforts by the government, the per capita food grain availability went up just on the eve of neoliberalism to about 180 kilograms, 150 to 180. Not the level where it was at the beginning of the 20th century, but nonetheless an improvement from the period of independence. You take the subsequent period, the neoliberal period, it has fallen to about 162 kilograms now. Therefore, you find that on the most elementary index of simply food grain availability, hunger, things are worse in the neoliberal period than it was in the earlier period, than it was in the earlier post-independence period. So I'm not somebody who actually says, oh, that was a failure, this was a failure. I think there were many positive achievements then, which are deliberately being debunked now, and I'm not going to be part of that debunking. Okay, I agree that, of course, the very fact that even to this day, you simply have to step out and see the extent of poverty and misery, and it had not disappeared before neoliberalism appeared, that obviously post-independence Indian economic development, whether of the statist kind or of the neoliberal kind, has been grossly inadequate. Now, I'm not saying that economic rights per se are going to make a difference. I think this inadequacy can be overcome only when people become subjects, when people assert themselves, when they demand that their conditions be improved. In other words, it is not a Modi or even somebody else whose goodness is going to bring development to the people. People have to develop themselves to demand development. Okay. Now, what I'm saying is that similarly, these economic rights are not going to be ensured by anybody. People have to demand this. But before people can demand this, members of the intelligentsia, like people gathered here, must see that this is a possible scenario, which is why I'm presenting it to you. But fundamentally, let's be clear that it is that what you are saying about quality of man, quality and so on, all these can be changed when people become subjects. Long, before 1949, the Chinese were generally seen as a nation of coolies. Who sees the Chinese as a nation of coolies now? In other words, history makes a difference. And the kind of difference I want history to make in our country is that as people become more and more assertive, as people become more and more subjects, become masters of their own destiny, only then things are going to change. Neoliberalism destroys that. As I said, it even destroys trade union movement, let alone other kinds of struggle. But I think the crisis of neoliberalism gives us an opportunity once more to revive struggles of various kinds, because capitalism, neoliberal capitalism, is at a dead end.